what I think is a very important conversation about the ways COVID-19 has impacted Tennessee families and small businesses in the way forward. My name is Andrea Bond Johnson, and I'm running for state representative for House District 82. I am pleased to be joined by two great guests who will be sharing their own insights and experiences around this issue. Representative John Ray Clemons is currently serving his third term as state representative for District 55 in Nashville. Representative Clemons serves on a number of committees in the State House, which includes education, health, mental health, and substance abuse. And over the last several months, he's also been assisting folks across the state who have lost their jobs due to the pandemic and now are trying to obtain their unemployment benefits. We also have with us Tiffany Nance, and Tiffany is the owner of Nance Tax Service in Alamo. And like me, she grew up here in District 82. Tiffany has been in business for 14 years and, like many business owners, has had to make drastic changes in order to adapt to doing business during COVID and to comply with new public health guidelines and to keep her staff and clients safe. District 82 includes Crockett, Haywood, and Lauderdale counties, all of which are rural. One of the areas that directly impacts our district is finances, or should I say economic development. Of course, we need jobs. We need good paying jobs. But due to COVID-19, we need to be able to keep the jobs that we have and to receive benefits due to us when faced with a crisis. The residents of District 82 need information, guidance, and support. They're independent and hardworking. They want a hand up and not a handout. I am really happy that both of you could join us for this conversation as we delve into the challenges and support systems that can help us during COVID-19 crisis. Representative Clemens, we'll start with you. Under the provisions of the CARES Act, you may be eligible for compensation under the Pandemic Unemployment Assistance Program. Who actually is eligible for this program?
Yeah, well, first of all, let me thank you for hosting this important conversation. This is certainly a challenging time for all of Tennesseans, especially working Tennesseans that have, they're used to being able to put food on the table and take care of themselves and their families. And, a lot of people find themselves looking for government assistance for the first time in their lives in this type of manner. So, this is an important discussion. The PUA program is really unique in that it allows self-contractors, self-employed individuals, W-9 employees generally to file unemployment claims. They generally, as you know, under traditional unemployment or the UI program or TUC in Tennessee, self-employed and independent contractors couldn't receive unemployment benefits. And so that's what is allowed under this program. And also, if you have someone in your family who's been diagnosed with COVID-19, if you're a caregiver and others, you have possible eligibility for this program as well. What you need to do to apply for this program is just go to Jobs for Tennessee, JOBS, the number 4TN.gov, and you can apply for this program if you're an independent contractor or self-employed individual or fit one of the other classifications. And you put in your earnings generally for the last 18 months, and you're eligible for those benefits. You're also eligible if you qualify. You're also eligible for the FPUC program, which is $600 a week. The maximum, I believe, for the PUA program is about $275 a week, and you're eligible for that program, the PUA program that you referenced. You're eligible for that for up to 39 weeks, and that's retroactive. So if you were laid off anytime after January of 2020, you can get that back pay, and you're eligible for up to 39 weeks through December of 2020.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a very beneficial program, and it's been a big assistance to a lot of people in Tennessee once they've finally gotten processed by the Department of Labor here in Tennessee, which we'll get to, I think, a little bit later.
A minute, yes. Okay. So let me ask you this. So what do people need as far as documentation when they apply for unemployment or the stimulus package?
Yeah, it's good to have when you go online and you can register online. It's good to have all of your earning history and knowing exactly, having your tax information, your 2019 fiscal year tax filings, even back through September of fiscal year 2018. It's good to have on hand so you can show your work history and your earning history. And then, you need to have your list of employers, those people for whom you've contracted to provide services, and or your business if you're self-employed, and just those types of proof are necessary to apply for the program online. You may have to do some follow-up phone calls with the state of Tennessee if there are any questions. You shouldn't have an appeals process, but generally you can get that fulfilled pretty quickly.
So it's really good for businesses to keep good records. You just never know what may happen, but we have to keep good records because I know you do have to submit a lot of information. Tiffany, let me ask you a question. So now, as a small business owner, how has COVID affected your day-to-day business? And are you keeping your patrons safe from contacting this virus? What are you doing to keep them safe?
Okay. First, I'd like to thank you, Andrea, for inviting me into this conversation. And I hope that, I'm able to share some things as a business owner that will be beneficial to the people in District 82 and all other people that are small business owners. As with many other businesses, when COVID-19 hit, and we were starting, the reopening, but when everything shut down, I kind of cut some hours for my employees, but then business slowed down. And for me, I'm a small tax preparation service. So when the deadline for taxes was extended to July 15th, then my business came to a screeching halt. So I started off with a couple of my part-time employees reducing their hours, and then I had to lay them off.
Okay.
And so as we re-entered phase one, and my business was one of those that was considered an essential business, but we still were able to go by some of the guidelines. And so now I'm taking appointments only. Still in this time, we're not open 9 to 5 anymore. My employees are still laid off, and I'm taking the appointments only. So I'm setting appointments, allowing people to come. I'm asking them for as much information and documentation that they can provide to me. They can email it to me or send it to me in the U.S. Postal Service. I'm asking them to do that on the front end. And when we set an appointment, I'm asking, are you bringing your spouse? Are you bringing children? Making sure we're staying the 6 feet apart. And I'm asking everyone that enters the office to wear a mask.
Okay. And so the employees that you did have to lay off, were they eligible for unemployment benefits?
They were. They were eligible for unemployment benefits, even though they were working on a part-time basis.
Okay.
So their benefit amount was, of course, a smaller amount than some that are eligible for the maximum of $275. But they were able to get the additional $600 from the pandemic unemployment assistance.
Okay. Well, great. Representative Clemons, now I know you've been working to assist Tennesseans across the state who lost their jobs because of COVID and who are still waiting on their unemployment benefits. So what are the biggest challenges those individuals and their families are facing right now?
Well, yeah, it's been a tough road for a lot of families across the state of Tennessee. Like I said, these are working families, and I will just say on the front end that working families across Tennessee deserve a lot better than what they have received from our state government. I think our state government has failed a lot of people. Here we are, almost mid-July, and the State Department of Labor and the state's leadership still hasn't figured this thing out. It's understandable on the front end with high volume, of course. But, we've got a lot of smart people in this state who know how to work software and know how to, do these types of things. And so it's really disappointing that people are still having issues. But yeah, so people have reached out to me, and to answer your question, the challenges are all across the board. There's a lot of families out there. I've had some heart-wrenching, I received dozens every single day. At one point, I was receiving a couple of hundred a day. I started receiving emails as soon as, in March 20th. And today I spent 4 hours responding to emails of people looking for assistance from across the state of Tennessee. Certainly outside of my district, I've taken calls from Tazewell to Mountain City to Memphis to Lake County, all across the board. And I've probably helped a couple thousand people, or tried to help, I should say. I don't think we've been successful in every effort, but when people send you an email or call your office telling you that they're going to be on the street the next day if they don't receive their unemployment benefits because they've been waiting 8 weeks since they applied, it's tough. It's tough on us as humans and as public servants, and it's frustrating for us legislators who don't really have the ability to do much other than submit an urgent request on their behalf to the Department of Labor and try to get them, just the courtesy of a phone call from someone to help them through this problem. And, and again, I use that example of somebody telling me they're going to be in their car. They did email me 2 days later from their car in which they were living out. They were parked out in McDonald's parking lot. They had to use Wi-Fi somehow, and that's the only place they could get it. It's just a very challenging situation. A lot of people, like I said, I continue to field emails today, people who've been waiting since March, who have not gotten their unemployment resolved for one reason or another. Now, they may not be eligible. Some of these individuals just simply may fall in that one of those little corners that's not covered by the program, but that's very rare. And families are seeing these challenges, and they need every dollar that they can get from the state of Tennessee, and it's provided by the federal government. Federal government and Congress, they stepped up and did their job. It's up to the individual states to carry out the program, to make the arrangements. Tennessee kind of dragged its feet for a couple of weeks, didn't make arrangements with the federal government for a few weeks. That delayed our program. But once it did, it obviously has a duty. We have a duty to our citizens to provide them. This isn't a handout. This is Tennessee citizens' own money. Most of them have paid into this program. This is their money, and they deserve that. They've played by the rules. They've never asked for anything, and so they deserve to have a state government that functions appropriately and can get them what they need to help them through this challenging time for everyone. But again, to really answer your question, if you can think of the situation, I've heard it. It weighs heavily on your heart, and it stays on my mind around the clock, as most of my colleagues who are trying to help these individuals personally.
Okay. So why do you think it's been so tough to get the unemployment benefits? I mean, what has happened?
Well, there's been a lot of challenges. Some of the usual stuff, you're going to have software where, you don't have, like the PUA program. We haven't had an unemployment system or the software system set up for self-employed or independent contractors to be able to apply for the program. So that was something that had to be created. You're going to have that increased volume that you might not have online capacity for. You might not have the router space, just basic things like that. But a big part of this dates back to quite honestly, when, about 2010, when this small government argument started taking over our state and the supermajority took over our state. I don't want to be too overly partisan, but the reality is you hear a lot about small government, and that sounds great until you realize what it means, which is that they've cut the personnel in the Department of Labor back to bare bones. They only had about a dozen people up there capable or trained to handle unemployment claims. By the time we got to this point, they haven't updated their software systems, even for capacity or for new technology, so that when they needed to update the software to accommodate a PUA program, for instance, they just weren't prepared. And so when you make cuts and cuts and cuts all these years, and you brag about having this giant rainy day fund, well, guess what? You cut somewhere. And in this case, they cut the Department of Labor. They've been cutting the Department of Revenue. They've been cutting auditors. They've been cutting all this stuff for about the last 10 years. And so now this is a perfect example of a perfect storm. When you really need it, all of a sudden, no one's there. No one's there to answer the phone. The software system hasn't been updated in 15 years. It's just the citizens of Tennessee pay for and expect better from the people who serve them.
Yeah.
And there are certain core services. I don't care where you stand on, or where anybody may stand on small government or any of those types of spin words or spin phrases. You have to provide a core level of services and competency to the state of Tennessee. And frankly, we have an unexperienced governor. We have some unexperienced administrative officials in this administration with the Governor Lee, and they just weren't prepared for it, and they haven't responded appropriately or efficiently in a manner that most of us would find acceptable.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard the horror stories. I know you guys had a Facebook Live event, and we were on and listened to it, and we heard the horror stories.
Yeah, tell that by thousands, and that's pretty much what all of us hear on a daily basis. It's truly sad.
And you're talking about a rainy day fund. I mean, like, isn't it storming now? I mean,
flooding.
This is the time. But okay, so Tiffany, let me ask you this. So how have government, state or local guidelines about COVID-19 been implemented in your business or those around you?
Well, what I've done, Andrea, for myself and for a lot of my clients that are small business owners, has taken advantage of the grants and loan programs that have been provided by the federal government through the SBA's PPP, which is their Paycheck Protection Program, and also through their Economic Injury Disaster Loan. So my business was able to take advantage of that. And what that kind of did was, then it allowed you I'll tell you about the Paycheck Protection Program first. Any business can go to a SBA approved lender and apply for that. And what it does is it will provide you a loan that is forgivable for 2.5 months of your payroll. And you have to, the idea is that you have to hire your person back or the people that you had as full-time employees, and you have to hire them back within 8 weeks. Initially, it was 8 weeks. I think the government has gone in and made some more provisions to extend those weeks for those, and you're eligible for a loan for that. And that was something that was also good for many small businesses that are just simply sole proprietors, or a lot of business that operates as sole proprietors, like your spa owners and your barbers and your hairdressers. Many of them were able to take their Schedule C or their business taxes and simply look at how much income they generated in 1 month's time. And they were able to get the PPP for 2.5 months of whatever that income was. And then the government also the federal government has the Economic Injury Disaster Loan, which what it does is it kind of looks at your business, and they have different algorithms that determines kind of how much you get, but they look at how much of an economic injury you've had in the past 12 months before COVID-19 hit. And they use that to determine a loan amount for you. Now that portion is a loan, but it has a 3.75% interest rate. The payments were deferred for 12 months. And it has a 30-year term. So for some business owners that say, I don't know if I want to get a loan right now because I don't know how my business is going to turn out. The federal government has some things in place, and they're giving you a 12-month deferment grace period before you even make your first payment.
Okay. So that's pretty good. So now the PPP is forgivable, correct?
That's
but the other one is a loan. It's strictly a loan.
It is strictly a loan.
Okay, strictly a loan. And so, but those terms, I mean, that interest rate and 30-year plan, that's very doable. I like that. And so I do hope that people took advantage of that. Now, did you find it to be difficult to apply to those things? Did you have to have a lot of documentation? Did you see that people had problems going to banks, getting these loans?
Well, I think the biggest thing, Andrea, I did see with some lenders that they were requiring a lot of documentation. And then there were other lenders that were more friendly and they required a limited amount of documentation for the PPP.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And when I say a limited amount, a lot of them, required either the Schedule C, if you were a business owner, if you were a farm or you had rental property, they required the Schedule F,
Mm-hmm.
and basically identification from you. And they wanted to know a little bit about your business,
Mm-hmm.
how long you'd been in business, when did you start, when did your business start,
Mm-hmm.
what percentage you owned. And there was, I think, a 2-page pager for the PPP application. And if you had that in your Schedule C and your identification, some of them required a business license, and that was it.
Okay.
But one thing that I found with some of the small business owners is that their financial institutions that they utilized were either not SBA approved lenders, or those that were SBA approved lenders. The lender was not telling the really small business owner, about those opportunities. Because, of course, we know banks, they're getting money from federal government also. So the bigger the loan, I'm sure the more profit margin that the bank gets for doing that. So I'm finding that some of my small business owners that were, say, beauticians or barbers, and they may come to me, and a lot of them were my clients, and I'm like, hey, did you take advantage of this? And they would tell me which financial institution that they banked, and I'm like, hey, that they're SBA approved. And just finding that they just weren't telling a lot of their really small, like their mom and pop businesses, about what opportunities were available.
And we're learning now recently about the larger companies that got a whole lot of money, and it appears a lot of our small businesses, once again, we were left out. But we will need to address that. Okay, we will need to address that. Representative Clemons, so what is the impact of decisions made in Nashville in regards to COVID? So what kind of impact has happened?
Well, there's a lot of them. You start with unemployment and what's going on in the executive branch with how we're processing unemployment claims. That's obviously a huge thing. The Commissioner of Education is making a lot of important decisions, or creating guidelines for how school districts are going to respond to COVID-19. We went back into session in early June and adjourned a couple of weeks ago, and I was disappointed the lack of effort that was made to really pass legislation and directly respond to COVID-19. Yet again, we had the opportunity to expand Medicaid. Where rural hospitals are being flooded. ICUs now, with the uptick in COVID-19 cases, we're seeing the ICUs are being filled up again. I think yesterday there were around 400 beds available in the state, which, that's not panic mode yet, but Medicaid expansion would have done a great deal. Predecessor in your seat obviously was a big advocate for this, and I followed in his footsteps, pushing for Medicaid expansion. We turned away about $8 billion. So just think about the amount of money that spread across our state into our small communities, and saved some of these small hospitals that would have closed and been available for healthcare.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but you said about $8 billion. I just want to make sure we're hearing that correctly. And is Tennessee leaving that on the table? I mean, is it still there for us if we decide to expand Medicaid?
No, it's gone. So that's what hurts even more. So we're one of 14 states in the entire country that haven't expanded Medicaid. So all that money we're paying in, we've already paid for it as taxpayers. That money's gone to the federal government. It was supposed to come back to us in the form of a reimbursement to cover those in the coverage gap. And so instead of coming back to us, we have forgone that money, and it has been distributed to other states who have expanded Medicaid. So, states like California, New York, all these other states, Kentucky, are benefiting from our taxpayer dollars, and their citizens who are in the coverage gap are getting that money. And so, you just look at $8 billion spread among the communities of this state that are really hurting right now. And the rural communities especially are starting to take a real blow from COVID-19. That I think that's the best example. And we tried to do that. I introduced an amendment on the House floor before we adjourned. And when we came back in, John Mark Wendell from over on the Plateau, Democrat, represented, had a bill killed in the late filed bills committee, or delayed bills committee rather. And, it was just voted down. I introduced an amendment to a bill to try to hold the Department of Labor and Workforce accountable, to hold back the resources for them until they came to us and testified and told us what they were going to do, and provided us with deadlines when problems were going to be fixed for unemployment. That was voted down along party lines. A lot of these different things that Nashville can be doing, we failed to do. We simply failed the citizens of Tennessee when we were in session before and after the original quarantine. And so now we find ourselves in a situation where we're still having to pull together to make ends meet. And so it's really on the shoulders of the governor. He's entered the executive orders recently that extended the state of the emergency. We're out of session for the year, obviously. Now they're talking about calling us back in for a special session because some businesses are upset we didn't pass liability immunity for them. But aside from that, we're done for the year. And so every decision being made is being made by the governor and his administration under the special powers in the Tennessee Code during a state of emergency. He has very broad powers. He has the ability to expand Medicaid. He alone can do that? I would argue that he has the legal authority under the code with his emergency powers that are in effect to expand Medicaid on behalf of Tennessee citizens right now. He has a great deal. The amount of his jurisdiction and his authority really has very few limitations at this point during a state of emergency. And so there really is every decision we make up there. I try to tell people, DC is the big shiny object, that gets all the news coverage, but the things that directly affect your daily lives are decided in Nashville, Tennessee, and in your local council and county commissions. The state of Tennessee is, we pump out legislation. So there's a lot of things we failed to do and a lot of things we did that probably didn't help matters.
So I take it you think that their response from the governor and the legislature, do you think it was really adequate?
No, I don't think we did nearly enough on behalf of Tennessee citizens. I mean, we should have made sure, let's just look at the fact that we put a couple $100 million more into the rainy day fund. Like you said, it's not raining; it is flooding across the state of Tennessee. We didn't come close to sufficiently funding our school systems. We have school systems across this entire state. The students don't have access to internet, and it's not because of any fault other than the fact that internet just doesn't exist in that part of the state. It's rural, and the powers that be in these companies haven't expanded there, and so these children don't have internet. If they had virtual learning, like Nashville, we decided they just announced today we're going to have virtual learning for the first month of the school year. So we should have been pumping some of that money into expanding internet, into making sure that children had access to technology, to laptops, that our teachers got their pay increase and they had the tools and resources necessary to teach from home. You have a lot of teachers that are struggling right now. Their spouses are laid off. They've been, they weren't able to work their summer jobs because we all know teachers don't make enough to live on that salary alone. Most of my children's teachers, I've got 3 in public school in Nashville. Most of their teachers have summer jobs, 2 or 3. Well, they didn't have those summer jobs this year. And so COVID, ended their part-time jobs. And so, we didn't increase their funding. So now they're struggling. Their spouses, or if they have a spouse, are struggling as well. And now they're going to be asked to teach from home, when they may not be able to pay their internet bill or their cable bill or whatever. It's just, there's a domino effect. And the state of Tennessee, we have a great deal of opportunity to be real leaders in Nashville. We have the money. The federal government, like I said, has been the adult at the table in this situation. They have provided the states with a lot of authority and a lot of money. And the state of Tennessee just simply failed them. It starts with the governor and goes on down through the supermajority in the legislature.
I mean, this is unbelievable. And I think about, we have like 300,000 Tennesseans that are uninsured, and the money is there for us. And They just refuse to expand Medicaid. I just don't understand that. And then in the middle of a pandemic, I don't know what they're thinking, you know.
Well, I don't know what they're thinking for the last, we could have done it as early as 2014. I don't know what they've been thinking all that time, but especially during a pandemic, you would think, and I joke about it, but I say, you can only imagine when they were make sausage with the Affordable Care Act, like every piece of legislation, but I'm sure they were sitting around in the White House and President Obama was saying, well, let's just, put a thing in here where we will give them money to cover more people for free.
Mm-hmm.
And they were probably, just thinking, oh, well, every state will, that's an obvious. Well, lo and behold, Tennessee and a few others just decided that politics is more important than people, and we still refuse to do that. And it's, it's simply because it's part of the Affordable Care Act, and President Obama created the program. And so that's the simple answer of why not.
And did I see recently that Oklahoma just expanded Medicaid? I mean, that was something recent, and I'm thinking, come on, Tennessee, what are we waiting on? So we'll just have to keep at it and maybe reach out to the governor and see if he will be so kind as to expand it for all of our citizens in Tennessee. So let me ask you this. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying, I tell you what Tennessee's waiting on is real leadership in Nashville from the governor's office on down. And that's why we so badly need you and others in the legislature to help us get this across the finish line.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, let's hope I get there in November. So now, what do you tell people who are frustrated by the governor and the legislature's response to this crisis? So what do you tell folks? I mean, this is difficult. What do you tell them?
Yeah, well, it's obviously frustrating, and people think that they can't make a difference. But let me tell you that every single person who registers to vote and votes, they make a difference. And that's what it's going to take. I think for too long, too many people have sat on the sidelines. You've seen disproportionate amounts of turnout. You see a lot of older white people voting every time the polls open. You see, children, or I shouldn't say children, I should say young adults, 18 to about 40 years old, don't vote. And they're the ones who have the most at stake. Yeah. And if people 18 to 40 voted, this would be in a completely different political landscape in the state of Tennessee. And if we could get everyone to vote across the board in our rural communities, minority communities, it would make a huge difference. And I think that's the number one thing people can do. If you're frustrated, then register to vote, get off your tail, and go vote.
So we know that Tennessee is known to be somewhat of a voter suppression state as well. But what I tell people, we have to vote like our lives depend on it. And I know that we went through a phase of where we had to have a certain form of ID. It had to be a state ID, could not be a college ID. So all of those things were thrown out to us in Tennessee, and it's a form of voter suppression. So I just want to encourage people. You've heard Representative Clemons say that leadership is important, and it's important who's at the table and who's in Nashville. And we want to make sure that we're voting for people that's going to have your best interest at heart. So listen, this has been a really good conversation, and we still have a little more time. And so, Tiffany, I just want to ask you something. So now, for business owners who are worried about keeping their doors open, so what would you tell businesses? What would you recommend for them to do?
What I tell businesses that are concerned, Andrea, about keeping their doors open is to look at their business and how long they've been in business, what their business has been doing, what type of business they have, and find a way in this COVID-19 era to have your business out there, to maximize what you have. And I say that meaning, a lot of things have gone virtual. I've been working from home virtual now for 4 months almost. And, you've just got to find different ways. Sometimes the marketing, picking up technology that you're not used to before, using those, just finding different mechanisms to make it work. And so, as we know, unfortunately, we have had several businesses in and around Tennessee and even in our county and in our district that have just been forced to close because the business just isn't there, the people aren't there. But I encourage them to find out about some of the products that are available through our federal government, to see if you're eligible for those if you haven't, because they will kind of keep you afloat and get you going for a while and find new avenues to market your business.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now, with the PPP loans that are forgivable, can you apply more than once? Because I know you mentioned something about 8 weeks, and now they have extended, and I believe they extended to maybe 24 weeks. Do you know if you can apply again? Do you think that's possible?
No, you're still only eligible for that same amount, which is about 2.5 months of income or payroll. That they've extended the time that you have to pay it back.
Okay.
Changed the split of what you can spend the money on, because initially 75% of it had to be spent on payroll costs. But a lot of small businesses, especially with them laying a lot of their people off, were kind of saying, I want my people to get what's best for them. So if I could just call a couple of them back and give them more hours, because a lot of them, as we know, with the pandemic unemployment, were making more money than they were working. And I know that there's been a lot of talk about, we need to get Tennesseans back to work because, they're getting all this extra money. But guys, it's when you look at it from the person that owns that business, they may not even be able to afford to hire that person back and keep it going. So the money that the federal government has provided, just as Representative Clemons said, it is available for Tennesseans to be able to get themselves, keep themselves afloat, and keep everything going that they needed to get going. So for the PPP, for those business owners, I think they have maybe another 4 weeks left to apply if they did it.
Okay.
For the economic injury disaster loan, that portal is still, they can go to sba.gov, and that portal is still open for them to apply for that. It's a simple application. I think it's about 4 or 5 pages, but basically just asking you, when did you start your business, a little personal information, the amount of sales revenue you had and your cost of goods sold. And that's pretty much the application.
Okay. That's not too bad. So I sure hope all of our small business owners who are listening today will take advantage of that. It is still available. You still can apply for both of them, the PPP and the economic injury disaster loan. So anything that you need, this is the time. Go to your banks or go online. What is that email again for the online?
Oh, go to sba.gov.
SBA.gov. Okay.
As soon as you get to their homepage, you'll see a spot that says COVID resources. So you're able to click on that COVID resources, and everything from there is pretty self-explanatory.
Okay, great. And sometimes, I think people think that it's a lot more difficult than what it really is. So you just have to, remain tenacious and be persistent and go ahead, look up these applications, fill them out, get the information that they need, because the reward will be great in the end, because we need help. Small businesses definitely need help during these times. So many of us need help. Representative Clemons, let me ask you this. So what would you tell Tennesseans across the state that are still waiting on their unemployment benefits and worried about paying their bills and paying their rent? What would you tell them on this evening?
Well, I would just tell them to reach out to their legislator, and feel free to reach out to me, of course. My office phone number is 615-741-4410. We are happy to help. Like I said, we've been helping people across the state of Tennessee, and certainly not limited to my legislative district. I'm happy to represent all 6.8 million Tennesseans. I think we all have a duty to do that. So everybody should reach out to me. I would encourage you, if you aren't getting the results you need and people aren't being held accountable, then I would encourage you to vote, elect people who will hold people accountable. And again, I can't emphasize how sorry I am that the state has failed you up to this point. You should expect better, and you deserve better. And I will do everything I can. And I know a lot of my Democratic colleagues, and I'm sure others across the aisle would do the same. But we're limited in what we can do. But we just need to make sure to have people in office that are going to do the job. Experience matters. Knowledge matters. We had the opportunity to elect people who had experience and knowledge. We simply failed to do so. But we are where we are. But I would just, I want to say hang in there and be positive. But people at this point, if they applied in March and they still haven't gotten their unemployment, they don't want to hear that, and I don't blame them.
Yes.
And they shouldn't accept it. It's unacceptable.
Mhm.
Reach out to us. I can only imagine how many people out there don't realize they can reach out to their state legislator and get assistance. And so please call us, email us, just Google my name. You'll find my state legislative account or your own state legislator, and reach out to us and get somebody who will fight for you, because you deserve to be helped. And don't think that unemployment isn't for you. There's a lot of people out there that are really resistant to applying for unemployment because they think they don't want to rely on the government. That this is what we're for. This is what we're here for, and that's what that money's for. The federal government has given it to us. The state of Tennessee has it, and you deserve to have some of that burden taken off your back, because none of this is your fault. You and your family deserve better, and we're here to fight for you and do what we can to help.
Okay, sounds good. All righty. Well, listen, Tiffany, is there anything that you would like to see your state government do for small businesses that currently is not being done?
Well, I wish that our state government would also have some grants for those small business owners and Tennesseans, like the federal government does. I know in some other states, I hear about grant opportunities and even some small loan opportunities, but just none of that here in Tennessee. Okay. And we've got that rainy day fund that would be very beneficial to a lot of business owners, because COVID-19, I cannot think of not one business that COVID-19 has not affected in Tennessee, from even some bigger businesses to some of the smalls, and especially our mom and pop businesses, a lot of those. So I wish that the state had something similar or some avenue, some kind of grant, some kind of assistance that they could provide to some of the small business owners in this state, because we're seeing business owners that have been in business for decades having to literally close their doors, and that's just not fair.
That's right.
That's absolutely right. And states like Michigan and others have done compensatory programs along with the SBA to complement their efforts. And I think that's one of the states to which Ms. Nance is referring, and several others have done that. And Tennessee really missed a chance. And we still have the opportunity. It's not in motion right now, but we will continue to push for that, because several of us did.
Okay. So let me ask the question. So what would we tell small business owners who they feel left out? They have gone to their lenders and they will tell them, I'm sorry, but we cannot provide you with a PPP loan because you don't have an existing loan with our banks. Have you heard of this happening? Because I have.
I have.
Okay. So what happens? Who do these people turn to if something like that is going on? If the bank says, listen, I'm sorry, yeah, I know you may have an account here, but you don't have an existing loan, so we just cannot work with you on this PPP loan. Who do they turn to?
There are some other lenders, other banks that will do it.
Okay.
A lot of banks are telling you're right. They're telling them, if you don't have an existing loan or you've never had a loan with us, unfortunately, we can't do it. And Andrea, I'm just going to tell you that I think that is just something they're telling them because the loan size may be too small. And they may not, or they may have enacted that rule or whatnot. I would encourage them to find another lender. When you go to that SBA.gov, and go inside the search engine and ask for SBA approved lenders, and it will tell you. But there are also some online lenders that are providing SBA funding There's a lender, Cabbage is one I can think of.
Okay.
Then people that use QuickBooks, they are also their lenders, or they've got lenders that are there. So, and if you're having any difficulty, finding a lender or wanting to know, and you can call my tax office, because I have someone that answers the phone at all times.
Okay.
And they'll be able to kind of direct you, see what area of the state you live in, and we can take your zip code and see if there's some SBA approved lenders, and just kind of call them and ask, are you doing the PPP loan? I am, unfortunately, I don't bank with your bank, but I am interested. But there are several online lenders that are also doing it.
That's good. Oh, that's good to know. And what is your number, Miss Nan, so people can call?
It's 731-696-9099.
696-9099.
That's
Area
it.
code 731. And that is Miss Tiffany Nance. And she's putting it out there. So if you small business owners, please feel free to give her a call, and she will help guide you in the right direction. Okay, so listen, we're getting ready to wrap up. Do any of you have anything else you would like to share tonight before we close out? Anything else? Are we good?
Well, I'd just like to thank you for this call. I'm so impressed by Miss Nance. I'm gonna be down there recruiting her to run for something next. So look out. But no, I appreciate this. It's been very informative. I learned some things from Miss Nance, and I appreciate your insight and your attention to these issues. These are a lot of questions that are asked to me on a daily basis. I hope a lot of people have tuned into this informative session, and you're already fulfilling a role that's so vital to be provided by elected officials, is just be a source of information. Let people know, small business owners or an entrepreneur. If you're an entrepreneur, you feel like you're on an island by yourself every single day anyway, just as a small business owner or an entrepreneur. And now going through this, it probably even magnified 100 times. So just knowing that other people out there have the same questions as you or having the same challenges, I think is so important. So thank you so much for bringing attention to these issues. I'm so thankful for Miss Nance and everything she's doing for the local economy. And I'm just honored to be a part of this, and I look forward to serving with you, hopefully in the coming days. Again, just want to make a push for people: get out and vote. Who represents you matters, and leadership matters. Experience and knowledge matter. Your life is being affected on a daily basis in the state legislature, and you want somebody there who you can trust and is fighting for you and your values and your family. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Ms. Nance, anything you want to say before we close out?
Andrea, I just want to thank you for the opportunity. I'm so grateful that you invited me as a small business owner. And Representative Clemons, thank you also for just the wealth of knowledge that you brought to us. And you are so correct. A lot of things, you guys, we can change, but we have to do it at the polls. We've got to be able to change at the polls. And I just thank you, Andrea, for being a wealth of knowledge and inviting me, inviting Representative Clemons, and inviting others. And that's what a true leader in our district and what we're looking for. That is what the people need, to see what our issues are in our area and bring people to the table that can assist with those issues. And so that shows true leadership. And I'm excited for your run and excited to be part of this tonight.
Well, thank you all both once again. And listen, I just appreciate everybody for being a part of this conversation and everybody who tuned in tonight. And Mr. Rogers used to say that when scary things were happening, to look for the helpers. Well, I think it's very clear to us tonight that in uncertain and scary times, both Tiffany and John Ray are truly helpers. So thank you guys once again. And I also want to be a helper. And that's a big part of why I'm running. We are in this together. We're all in this together. And I want to help all of us move forward. I hope you'll check out my website at www.andreabondjohnsontn82.com and support our campaign. Thank you, everyone. Please be safe, practice social distancing, and wear your mask. Thank you, and good evening, everybody.
Good night.